What is up, YouTube family? Thank you guys for tuning back into Will Burner Shenanigans. My name is Chad. This is my wife. And we back with another great video. We heading into, this is D type of content. This is her type of video, her type of stuff.
What is it?
We're going into the sixth most ruthless female narcos.
I bet I can name some.
Ruthless.
I think I can name like 3.
We ruthless.
Enough has been said about the wives of drug lords. I'm talking of the women who stood by dangerous drug barons through their most volatile moments. The ones who ran whole divisions of the drug trade, and the ones who were ruthless enough to overthrow and run the cartels themselves. Let's talk about the notorious wives of the most dangerous drug lords.
Let's go.
Sandra Avila Beltra. Sandra was born into crime. In fact, she was a third-generation drug trafficker born in Baja California, Mexico. Her family had serious ties to the ruthless Guadalajara cartel, so she continued with the family business. Sandra dated a lot of dangerous men in her youth and married a law enforcement officer as her first husband. This officer almost immediately switched to a life of crime after meeting Sandra. Was she the one who introduced him to crime? I don't know for certain, but what I know is that this husband eventually bit off more than he could chew and was killed in a shootout. Not too long after her loss, Sandra married another law enforcement agent who, just like her first husband, left the law and became a drug trafficker. He too was assassinated, stabbed in the heart at the height of the Mexican drug wars. As Sandra got older, she became craftier. Her crime career blossomed, and it got to the point where she was smuggling tons of cocaine through a fleet of tuna boats that she owned. Money flowed in, and Sandra spent that money like it was a natural resource. One example of her obscene spending was a gold pendant of King Tutankhamun that was studded with 83 rubies, 228 diamonds, and 189 sapphires. And the craziest part of all this was the fact that no one knew who she truly was. She told everyone that she made her wealth selling houses and clothes in Guadalajara. Eventually, the police caught up with her in 2002 when her teenage son was kidnapped by a rival cartel and she had to pay a $5 million ransom. They found out that Sandra, the humble saleswoman, actually owned more than 200 properties in Guadalajara. So 5 years later, they arrested her. She was released in 2015 and now lives what many people call a not-too-quiet life
she out here just back in the streets again.
But Sandra Avila Beltran is a legend in the drug scene. At one point in her nefarious career, she was referred to as the Queen of the Pacific and even had a viral song written in her honor in 2004.
You know what I was thinking? You know how they seize everything?
What is it? La Reina de Sol.
You know how they seize, like, you know how they take everything?
Wait, that title? That's a Netflix show. I've been wanting to watch it. See, if I would have watched it, I would have known who she was.
You know how they take everything? Like when they say you go to, like when they got houses and stuff?
Uh-huh.
I wonder the people who live in them, like when they rent them out to them, I wonder what happens. Like, do the bank take over now you pay the bank the rent? Or do your rent drop? I'd be like, hey, do my rent drop now that, you know, she was a drug lord charging me $1,800 a month.
Now that I see this, I'm going to go start that show.
You ain't thinking about that?
No.
She was charging me $1,800. That mean you're going to cut it? Because she was a drug dealer. She didn't even need my rent. She was making millions.
I'm going to go watch that.
And she even inspired the Mexican telenovela named Queen of the South. Emma
her.
Coronel Aispuro. Joaquin Guzman matched Escobar's proficiency as a drug lord. Any fan of this channel knows that already. Guzman, also known as El Chapo, found revolutionary methods for the transportation of drugs into Europe and the US. He founded the Sinaloa cartel and became an urban legend. But behind every successful man is an equally successful woman. For El Chapo, this woman was Emma Coronel Aispuro.
Who was this?
A year after they first met, Emma won a pageant show where she was crowned Miss Coffee and Guava in Canelas, Durango, Mexico. After the pageant, which many people felt that she won due to El Chapo, they declared openly that they would be getting married. They got married on the 3rd of July 2007, which conveniently coincided with Emma's 18th birthday. They would later have a pair of twin girls named Maria and Emali. Unfortunately for her, El Chapo eventually got captured twice by the feds, and luckily for her, he also escaped twice. However, by his third capture, he was sent to a supermax prison in Florida, where even Clark Kent would have a hard time breaking out. And since the drug lord isn't from Krypton, he has been wallowing in jail ever since, serving multiple life sentences. So, the spotlight naturally shifted from the captured El Chapo to his bride, Emma, with the authorities asking one very important question. What role did Emma play in her husband's Sinaloa cartel? Well, investigators would soon find out that she played a major role in helping her husband run his Sinaloa cartel empire. She was not only fully involved in trafficking drugs, she also provided useful information to the cartel, and And to top it off, the second time her husband escaped from prison, she was the one who helped him. So, after building up a case against her, the feds arrested Emma. And 4 months later, she pleaded guilty to all the charges pressed against her by the feds. In November of the same year, Emma was sentenced to 3 years in prison. The reason for the lenient sentence was because of her guilty plea, and because she showed remorse for being involved in her husband's illegal activities. She is currently serving her sentence at Federal Medical Center Carswell, where most people doubt that she will turn a new leaf before she is done with her time. Maria Victoria Henao. One question.
You think she'll love after lockup? What's the date? What's the deadline? Pen pals? I might have to go put some money on her books. You over here tripping. She probably need a little something.
Question I always had about Pablo Escobar was, how involved was his wife in his business? And I know I've talked about their relationship several times on this channel, but I don't think we've answered that question yet. The infamous Pablo Escobar had a home, and the person who kept it together was none other than his wife, Maria Victoria Henao. However, Maria was in love and reportedly had no idea that Pablo would go on to become one of the most famous, most successful, and most feared drug barons that the world had ever seen. By every account, Pablo treated Maria like a queen. His queen. They had 2 children together, a boy named Juan Pablo Escobar and a girl, Manuela Escobar Henao. But there was a big problem. Maria was not the only woman in Escobar's life. Escobar had many flings with many women, and Maria had to endure every one of them, including a highly publicized affair with a controversial journalist known as Virginia Vallejo. However, while anyone would have left the man, Maria chose to stay with the drug lord to the very end. She was just 32 when Escobar was killed, and as the world celebrated his death, Maria grieved the only man she had ever loved. After Escobar, Maria chose not to remarry. Since rival cartels were more than willing to kill her and her children, and since the government wasn't too keen to protect them, she ran into hiding in Argentina, changing her surname from Escobar to Isabel Santos Caballero. Maria was, and still is, a quiet, private, and reserved woman. That hasn't stopped people from wondering how involved she was in her husband's illegal business. If you asked her, she would tell you that she didn't know that her husband was a drug lord for the first few years of their marriage. However, in 1999, Maria and her son Juan Pablo were arrested for suspected money laundering. After their release, the press linked the arrest to Escobar's past crimes, and she immediately denied all allegations, insisting that she was just a wife to her husband and was never involved in any of his illegal businesses. As it stands, we might never know how involved Maria was in the Medellin cartel. Juliana Faray. While Escobar ran Colombia, an American gangster named Frank Lucas ran the US. And unlike Maria, Frank's wife Juliana Faray was not shy about her husband's dealings. She was neck deep in it. Frank Lucas was an African American that found a way to monopolize the drug market by cutting out middlemen and buying directly from the source in Asia. Subsequently, Frank Lucas controlled the sale of heroin all over the US, and his wife Juliana was right beside him, making sales of her own. Not much is known about Juliana's childhood, except that she was born into a very wealthy family in New Jersey in 1941. The family would later relocate to Puerto Rico for some reason, and this is where she would spend the rest of her childhood. Having lacked nothing, Juliana grew to be a spoiled child and quickly became the black sheep of her family. Some years later, she would elope with Frank, whom she met at a house party. They fell in love, got married in the 60s, and had 6 children together. While Frank moved heroin around, Juliana's specialty was cocaine, and she got arrested several times for possessing and selling the drug. Even after her husband was busted and got to spend time in jail, Juliana continued peddling the white substance. When Frank was released in 1991 and became a key informant for the government, she didn't stop. After Frank got into a car accident that left him permanently restricted to his wheelchair.
You've never seen the movie?
What is it called?
With freaking T.I. in it.
What is it called?
I can't think of it right now because you got me on the spot. I can't think of it.
I didn't know.
Oh, freaking, hold on, y'all. It's like a Monday right now. I'm drawing a blank. Why can't I think of it?
I never even knew those. I want to see it.
You've seen it with me. I've watched it like plenty of times.
I don't know. What is it called?
American Gangster.
No, I don't think I've seen that.
You've never seen American Gangster?
No.
Woman, if you watched it with me, I've only watched it in his house like 12
I don't remember.
times.
I didn't know that was
his story. It only said his wife is Puerto Rican. I said she's fine in the movie.
No, but I'm saying I didn't know this was his story, so now I gotta go watch it and actually pay attention.
Juliana supported her husband and continued selling drugs. She even got arrested. On the 19th of May 2010, she was busted in a hotel in Puerto Rico for selling about 2 kilograms of cocaine. 2 years later, she was sent to jail for the crime for 5 years. Eventually, Frank died on the 30th of May 2019, just 2 years after her release from prison. It was only after this that she stopped selling drugs. Clara Elena Laborin. Clara Elena Laborin is an enigma. Not much is known about her background, but she's perfect at courting danger. Her husband was none other than Beltran Leyva, the Mexican drug trafficker who broke away from El Chapo, formed his own cartel, and lived to tell the tale. But that's not all. He also started a bloody war against the Sinaloa cartel because he felt that El Chapo had snitched on his brother, who got arrested. Beltran Leyva was, and still is, a very violent man. And this is the man Clara Laborin chose to be the love of her life. It's not difficult to understand why. She was a beauty queen when she met Beltran Leyva, and according to everyone who knew them, he treated her like a literal queen. So she went to the ends of the earth for him. She even ran the money laundering section of her husband's cartel, which was incredibly dangerous. So dangerous that in 2010, she was kidnapped by a rival cartel and photographed in captivity, blindfolded, bound with ropes, with guns pointed at her. 13 days later, her husband secured her release, and she returned to the section she was running like nothing happened. 4 years later, Beltran Leyva got arrested, and Clara became the head of the cartel. She plunged Mexico into one of the bloodiest wars it had ever seen. Even her husband's feud with El Chapo was nowhere near as violent, and it was all in a bid to take control. No one was spared. Not even tourists.
That's so crazy,
Eventually,
like
Clara got arrested and will definitely face a lengthy jail sentence, even though she claims today that she is no longer a part of the cartel. Griselda Blanco. Griselda was born into poverty on the 15th of February 1943 in Santa Marta, Colombia. She was so poor that she turned to crime when she was just 11, helping to kidnap a boy and promptly killing the boy after his wealthy family refused to pay the ransom requested. By her teens, Griselda had married a small-time criminal, and they would go on to have 3 children. But they divorced, and if the rumors are true, then Griselda also ordered his assassination. By the early 1970s, Griselda got married to a drug lord named Alberto Bravo, and through him, Griselda got into the cocaine trading scene. They made New York City their base, trafficking the unholy white substance into the United States. However, the feds were onto them, so Blanco and her husband fled to Colombia in 1975. However, things got ugly. In Colombia, Griselda confronted her husband when she found out that he'd been taking money from their business without telling her. The confrontation devolved into a shootout, and Griselda murdered her husband, earning herself the nickname Black Widow. She remarried soon after, and once again, she had her third husband killed. Recognizing her inability to keep a spouse alive, Griselda remained single and returned to the US by the late 70s. She moved to Miami, where she quickly established herself as the godmother of cocaine. Then, Griselda eliminated her competition by plunging the city of Miami into a period of violence that later became known as the Cocaine Cowboy Wars. She ordered several murders that were executed in daylight drive-by shootings by gunmen on bikes. With her criminal intelligence and absolute ruthlessness, Griselda grew insanely wealthy, netting at least $80 million per month. And Griselda enjoyed every bit of it, hosting hedonistic parties and buying million-dollar properties. However, all things good and bad come to an end. By 1984, Blanco had to leave Miami for California because everyone was after her. By 1985, she was arrested and found guilty of multiple drug charges. She received a maximum sentence of 15 years, and by 2004, Griselda was released and deported to Colombia, where she retired from her life of crime. But it was too late. In 2012, karma came knocking when she got killed by a gunman on a bike as she left a butcher shop in Medellin, Colombia.
That's crazy.
It's so crazy because, like,
she retired.
We've seen the documentary of Griselda Blanco and the Cowboys. That shit was crazy. I've watched almost all of the Narcos, so like, yeah, I kind of like know my info.
I like how they say retired, like she was in a real job, like 401k or something, like retired.
So like, if you guys haven't, check out Narcos. It's good as heck. And then like, Netflix's like El Chapo show is good as heck, and like you kind of just learn everything. But I really love watching those.
I didn't know a lot about these. A lot of these I didn't know.
That's
about.
crazy.
I remember when I used to work in this one company. Me and my boy, we used to have our phones playing a podcast. I mean, he put me on to like the podcast, the Cartel podcast. They're crazy. Like he used to always have them playing. And I used to be like, bro, what you listening to? And he'd be like, oh, the Cartel podcast. Like, go check it out. And they tell stories like this, and it's crazy. But I didn't know about half these people. I knew some of them, but I didn't know half of these people. Was like,
I didn't know the girls, but I knew the guys.
That's crazy that the females are still out here pushing weight.
But like I said, the only reason why I know more because like Narcos.
$80 million? Oh my god! Just let me hold a milli.
You guys should watch. It's like called the Cocaine.
That's crazy because that dude is still alive.
Like that. Watch that documentary, and like he pretty much talks about finally meeting and getting to know Griselda. Like I guess she just rang bells, of course, and he was like, oh, I'm gonna write her in prison. He wrote her, but they became pen pals, and then he fell in love with her. and literally they became official.
Man,
it was
look.
crazy. Like, go watch the Cocaine Cowboy
I'd have been
story.
out there getting me some money. I'd have saw Griselda old self.
That was good.
Let me go ahead and do something strange for a piece of change.
Really?
She got bread.
That's crazy. And it's crazy because her technique was like, having drive-bys on bikes, and that's literally how she.
It's so crazy that Frank Lucas in the movie, they didn't talk about his wife continuing the operation, like her doing her thing while he was. They show her just leaving him. Like in the movie, they switched that all up. That's why I was like, wait a minute. When they said, his wife continued to do all that, the movie ended where Frank went to jail. She left him basically, and then he gets out of jail, and then the movie ends.
I highly doubt they're gonna.
But
put it all
that's why
that
I'm like, because she probably still alive. She probably, they probably want to, she's still out there pushing weight though. That's crazy. That's crazy. This was crazy. I like this. Y'all keep this content. Y'all on fire today. I like this content y'all sending over here. This mystery stuff y'all got going on.
That's crazy.
First we got the back in the day kid shows. Y'all send us down the cartel. Y'all just on fire on this Tuesday.
No, you're on fire because you're excited.
Yeah, this is cool. I like this. But anyways, thank y'all for tuning back in with us. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share. We'll see you on our next video.